Lily never liked change. Her life had already been through too many of them, her parents' divorce, the long silence that followed, and the empty space her mother tried so hard to fill. When her mom remarried, Lily smiled for her, but deep down she felt uneasy. She was 22, still living at home after finishing college, helping her mom rebuild her life. But when David moved in, everything began to feel unfamiliar again. David wasn't what she expected. He was quiet, gentle, and thoughtful in a way that felt almost out of place in their small house in Seattle. He never tried to act like her father, and that confused her even more. She had met plenty of adults who either ignored her or tried too hard. But David simply existed in calm, balance, fixing small things around the house, bringing coffee to her mom each morning and greeting Lily with a warm, easy "Hey, kiddo." It was strange how his presence changed the air, peaceful but complicated. In the beginning, Lily kept her distance. She avoided long conversations and ate dinner in her room, pretending to scroll through her phone. She told herself it was because she was busy applying for jobs. But deep down, she knew it was something else. She didn't want to start caring about someone new. She had seen too many people walk away. But life has a way of making people face what they avoid. One rainy Friday night, the power went out during a storm. Her mom was stuck at work, leaving only Lily and David in the dark house. For a few moments, they stood in the silence, listening to the rain hammer against the windows. Then David found some candles and lit them, one by one, until the living room glowed with a soft, golden light. He smiled gently. "I guess it's just us tonight." Lily nodded awkwardly, sitting across from him. He handed her a blanket and a mug of tea. It was warm and smelled like cinnamon. The simple gesture softened something inside her. They started talking, first about small things, then deeper things. He told her about the house he grew up in, the way his late wife loved music, how he still kept her favorite records in a wooden box. There was no sadness in his voice, only honesty. Lily found herself listening, really listening. When it was her turn, she surprised herself by talking about her father, how distant he had become after the divorce, how she stopped expecting calls that never came. Her voice cracked once, but David didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. That simple act did something to her. No one had listened like that before, not even her friends. The storm outside grew stronger, thunder rolling like a heartbeat through the walls. But inside the room, it felt peaceful. She caught herself laughing at one of his old stories about a disastrous camping trip. And he laughed with her, eyes shining with warmth. For a moment, she forgot everything the wall she'd built, the doubts she carried, the distance she kept. Later, when the storm began to fade, Lily found herself watching him quietly as he packed away the candles. He looked tired but kind, like someone who had seen too much and still chose to be gentle. She realized then that her first impression of him had been wrong. He wasn't trying to replace anyone. He was just trying to bring calm to a house that had forgotten what it felt like that night. As she lay in bed, she thought about the way he had listened to her without judgment. It was such a small thing, but it meant everything. She remembered his voice, steady and warm, saying, "You don't owe the past your future, Lily." The words echoed in her mind until she fell asleep. In the days that followed, something began to shift quietly between them. She still called him David, but the edge in her tone faded. She started joining her mom and him for breakfast, listening to their light conversations. Sometimes when her mom left early for work, Lily and David would share coffee in silence, watching the sunlight slide across the kitchen counter. It wasn't closeness exactly, it was understanding. The kind that grows when two people start seeing each other clearly. Yet Lily didn't know what to do with the new feelings forming inside her. It wasn't romantic. It was something deeper, something about trust and safety she hadn't felt in years. But it scared her too. The more she saw his kindness, the more she wanted to believe in it, and that frightened her. She had learned the hard way that believing in people always came with a price. One afternoon, she walked into the living room and found him repairing her mom's old record player. He looked up, smiling when he saw her. "Almost got it working again," he said. "Your mom's favorite song deserves to be heard." Lily hesitated before sitting beside him on the floor. You really do fix everything, don't you? She said softly. He chuckled. Not everything, but I try to make things a little better where I can. For some reason, those words stayed with her long after she left the room. That evening, when her mom returned home, the house felt lighter somehow, filled with quiet laughter and the sound of an old love song playing through the repaired speakers. Lily watched the two of them dance for a moment before slipping away to her room, her heart unexpectedly full. Later that night, she stood by her window, looking out at the soft drizzle. The city lights shimmered through the rain, and she thought about how much she had resisted letting anyone in. Maybe, she realized, it wasn't just change she feared, it was being seen, being known. But David, in his quiet, patient way, had done exactly that. He had seen her without trying to change her, and that made her feel something she couldn't name yet as she closed her curtains and got into bed. Lily whispered into the dark, almost to herself, maybe change isn't always bad. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in years, she felt a small spark of peace inside her chest, a beginning she never expected. And though she couldn't explain why, she knew that night had changed everything. David hadn't done anything grand or extraordinary, but somehow he had done something far more powerful. He had made her believe that life could be gentle again. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet distance that once filled the house slowly disappeared. Lily still kept to herself most of the time, but something inside her had changed after that night during the storm. She found herself noticing David more, the small things he did that no one else seemed to see. He wasn't loud or demanding. He moved through life with patience and care. When her mom forgot to eat breakfast before work, he left toast and coffee ready on the counter. When Lily looked tired, he didn't ask questions. He simply handed her a cup of tea and said, "You should rest." It was those small, consistent acts that began to soften the walls around her heart. Lily had always believed that kindness came with conditions. Growing up, people had shown her love only when it was convenient. But David didn't work that way. He never expected anything in return. He fixed things without being asked: the creaky door, the broken drawer in her art table, even the loose frame that had been hanging crooked for months. She started to realize that his way of showing care was through quiet effort, not words. One Saturday morning, she came downstairs to find him repainting a shelf in the living room. Music played softly from an old speaker, and the smell of fresh paint filled the air. "You're doing all this by yourself?" she asked. He smiled without looking up. "Your mom's been wanting this done for months. Thought I'd surprise her." Lily nodded, hesitated for a moment, then picked up a small brush and began helping him. They painted in silence for a while, occasionally exchanging glances, until David said, "You're good at this. You've got a steady hand." She smiled faintly. "Art school taught me a few things." "Then you should use them," he replied, his tone gentle but sincere. "You've got something special, Lily. Don't waste it hiding from the world." That comment stayed with her all day. She had stopped painting after graduation, too scared of failing, too unsure of herself. But that night she found her old sketchbook buried in a drawer. The pages were dusty, the edges worn, but as she flipped through them, something inside her stirred a quiet, familiar feeling she hadn't felt in years. Over the next few days, she began sketching again. Nothing serious at first, just small things: a cup of coffee, the rain outside the window, her mom's old scarf on a chair. When David noticed, he didn't make a big deal out of it. He simply said, "Looks like your hands. Remember what your heart forgot." That one sentence made her blush, though she didn't know why. He did many things like that, simple gestures that spoke louder than any compliment. When she stayed up late filling out job applications, he left a note beside her laptop that read, "Don't be too hard on yourself. The right door will open when it's time." The next morning, she found a small potted plant by her window with another note attached. "Something green to remind you that growth takes time." Lily couldn't explain it, but those little acts made her feel seen in ways words never could. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just there, reliable, real. But kindness can be confusing when you're not used to it. One evening, while her mom was away visiting relatives, Lily and David had dinner together. It wasn't planned, just happened. They ordered pizza, sat on the couch, and talked about movies. He asked about her favorite childhood memories, and she ended up sharing stories she hadn't told anyone in years. She told him about the time she tried to build a treehouse with her dad and fell off the ladder, about how her mom used to braid her hair before school, about how she missed feeling like a family. David listened with genuine interest, nodding quietly, sometimes laughing at the funny parts. He didn't rush her. He didn't offer advice. He just made her feel that her memories mattered. As the night went on, Lily noticed the way he spoke, always measured, always thoughtful. There was something safe about his presence. Not perfect, not mysterious, just human. When the movie ended, he looked at her and said softly, "I'm glad you talked tonight. You've got a good heart, Lily. Don't hide it." For a moment, her eyes met his, and she felt something strange, or warmth that scared her. She quickly looked away and said goodnight, retreating to her room before her emotions got the best of her. But once she lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Why did his words make her feel that way? Why did it matter so much what he thought of her? She didn't have the answers, but the feeling wouldn't leave. Days passed, and the rhythm of their lives continued, simple, quiet, almost comforting. Lily began waking up early just to sit with him during breakfast before her mom left for work. Sometimes they talked about books or movies. Other times they just sat in silence, sipping coffee while the morning sun poured through the kitchen window. She found peace in those moments. It wasn't romantic, it was something cleaner, something healing still. She couldn't ignore how different things felt when he was around. He made her feel like her life had value again, like she wasn't invisible. And the more she saw him, the more she realized how deeply kind people could be without saying a word. One morning, she woke to find another note on her desk. It read, "The world gets heavy, but you don't have to carry it alone." She stared at it for a long time, running her fingers over the handwriting. Her chest tightened. It wasn't a love letter, it was something even more personal. It was care in its purest form. That day, she started noticing everything differently. The sunlight seemed warmer, her laughter came easier, and her steps felt lighter. She didn't know if it was because of him, or because she was finally learning to breathe again. Either way, it felt like progress. Her mother noticed too. "You've been smiling more lately," she said one evening. Lily shrugged. "Just trying to take things easy." But deep inside, she knew it was more than that. It was David's steady kindness that had slowly rebuilt something inside her that she thought was gone forever. He had done it quietly, without trying to change her, without even realizing what he was doing. She didn't tell him how much it meant, but she didn't have to. Every time she smiled at him, he seemed to understand. As autumn settled in, the house began to feel warmer, not because of the heater, but because of the peace that had returned. Lily had stopped running from her emotions, stopped hiding from connection. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt grounded, and though she couldn't explain it fully, she knew one thing with certainty. David had done something to her heart. Not in a way that hurt, but in a way that healed. He had shown her what quiet kindness could do. He had done it with words, with patience, and with presence, and yes, she loved it, every gentle, unspoken part of it. When Lily's mother got an unexpected work assignment in another state, she packed her bags quickly and kissed them both goodbye, promising she'd be back in 2 weeks. For the first time, Lily and David were alone in the house together. The silence after her mother's departure felt strange, neither heavy nor awkward, just unfamiliar. Lily thought it might be uncomfortable, but it wasn't. The days passed quietly, with an easy rhythm that felt almost natural. In the mornings, David made coffee while Lily worked on her laptop. They'd exchange small talk, nothing deep, nothing forced. By the afternoon, he'd be fixing something around the house while she painted by the window. It was peaceful in a way she hadn't expected. Yet somewhere inside her, emotions she didn't understand began to stir. One afternoon, it started raining, soft and steady, tapping gently against the windows. Lily was sitting in the living room sketching when David came in with 2 mugs of tea. He placed one beside her and sat on the opposite couch. They didn't speak for a while. The sound of rain filled the space between them. "Your art's getting better," he said finally. She smiled. "Maybe I'm finally starting to feel something again." He nodded. "That's good. Feeling something is always better than feeling nothing." She looked at him then, really looked at him. His face showed quiet, strength-kind eyes, faint lines of worry. A calm that came from someone who had learned to let go of pain without forgetting it. Lily wondered how many storms he had survived to become this gentle. That thought stayed with her. In the days that followed, their conversations grew a little deeper. David told her stories about his youth, about dreams he once had and mistakes he made. He spoke with honesty, not trying to sound wise, just real. Lily found herself opening up more too about her fears, about how she felt stuck between wanting to start her life and being afraid to fail. One evening, she came home from a job interview that had gone terribly. She'd stumbled over her words, forgotten her talking points, and left feeling small. When she walked in, David noticed her red eyes and quiet steps. He didn't ask questions. He simply said, "You hungry?" and began cooking dinner. She sat at the kitchen table in silence, fighting back tears. When he placed a bowl of soup in front of her, she finally spoke. "I messed it all up. I sounded stupid. I'll never get anything right." David pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. "You didn't fail," he said softly. "You just fell." "There's a difference." She frowned. "What's the difference?" He looked at her with that steady calm she had come to trust. "Failing means you've given up. Falling means you're still moving. You get up, you try again, and that's what matters." His words hit her like a wave, gentle but powerful. For the first time that day, she smiled even through her tears. "You always know what to say," she whispered. He shook his head lightly. "No, I just know how it feels to think you're not enough. You are, Lily. You always were." In that moment, something inside her cracked open. It wasn't romantic, it was human. It was the feeling of being seen, understood, and lifted when she couldn't lift herself. She didn't know what to do with it, so she just looked at him, her eyes soft with gratitude. From that day on, things changed. Not in any dramatic way, but in subtle emotional shifts that only they could feel. They started cooking dinner together, laughing over burnt toast and too salty soup. Sometimes they'd watch old movies late into the night, talking about nothing and everything. Lily noticed that she was smiling more. She noticed that when he talked, she listened not out of politeness, but because she wanted to understand him. One night, they sat outside on the porch. The sky was clear, stars scattered across the darkness. David handed her a blanket and leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said quietly, "you remind me of myself when I was younger. Always chasing perfection, afraid to fail." She looked up at the stars. "Maybe we both learned the hard way," he chuckled. "Maybe, but learning's still learning, even if it hurts." They sat in silence after that, comfortable, peaceful. For Lily, it was one of those rare moments that didn't need words. She could feel the kindness between them, steady, safe, and honest. It wasn't about love in the romantic sense. It was about two souls recognizing pain in each other and choosing healing instead of hiding. The next morning, she woke early and went for a walk in the park. The air was crisp, the trees painted in autumn colors. As she walked, she thought about how much she had changed since David came into her life. He hadn't told her what to do or tried to fix her. He had simply shown her that she was capable of fixing herself. That realization filled her with quiet gratitude. She didn't know how to say it to him, so when she got home, she left a small thank you note on the counter. It simply said, "For listening, for caring, and for believing in me when I didn't. L." When David found it later, he didn't mention it, but she noticed the soft smile on his face at dinner. That was enough. A few days later, while working on a painting, Lily suddenly realized she was painting the scene from that stormy night months ago, the candles, the rain, and David's calm face across from her. She didn't plan it. It just appeared under her brush. When she finished, she looked at it and felt a lump rise in her throat. That night had changed her life. And she hadn't even noticed it happening. When David passed by and saw the painting, he paused. "That's beautiful," he said quietly. "You've got a gift, Lily." She smiled. "You've helped me find it again." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "No, you just needed someone to remind you it was still there." There was something in his tone of warmth, a truth that made her chest tighten. She turned away, pretending to clean her brushes. But her heart felt full in a way it hadn't in years. The following evening, they watched the sunset from the porch, the sky glowing gold and pink. Lily thought about how far she'd come from the angry, guarded girl she used to be. David hadn't just entered her life, he'd transformed it without even trying. When her mom finally returned home, Lily hugged her tightly, genuinely happy to see her. But later that night, as she watched David quietly unpack her mom's bags and ask about her trip, she realized something deeper. She wasn't just grateful for him, she admired him. His patience, his decency, his ability to heal without words. That night, lying in bed, Lily couldn't stop thinking about everything he'd done, the small gestures, the quiet encouragements, the belief he'd given her when she had none. He had done something to her. Not something physical or romantic, but something far more powerful. He had changed her from the inside. He had taught her how to see herself again, and she loved it. She loved the peace he brought, the strength he gave, and the quiet way he had taught her what care truly meant. For the first time in a long time, Lily didn't feel lost. She didn't feel broken. She just felt whole, and that was the moment she knew whatever happened next, her life would never be the same again. Months passed, and the house slowly settled back into its usual rhythm after Lily's mother returned. But something inside Lily had changed completely. She was no longer the quiet, uncertain girl who hid behind walls of fear and hesitation. David's steady kindness had reshaped her without her even realizing it. He had taught her what strength looked like when it came wrapped in gentleness. Her art began to bloom again. Every day she painted, sometimes for hours, losing track of time. The colors felt brighter, the strokes more confident. Her mom would often watch from the doorway, smiling proudly. "You're finally yourself again," she said one evening. Lily only smiled in return because deep down, she knew her mother was right. David had given her something no one else ever had: belief. He didn't push her or praise her too much. He just kept showing up. That was what made his influence so powerful. Came quietly, through actions, through presence. He had done something to her heart, something lasting. One morning, Lily received an email that made her hands shake. It was from a local art gallery in Portland. They had seen her online portfolio and wanted to feature her work in a small upcoming exhibition. Her first real opportunity. She couldn't believe it. She reread the message 5 times, hardly breathing. When she ran downstairs to tell her mom and David, was almost trembling with excitement. David looked at her, smiling with that familiar warmth. "I told you your time would come," he said. Lily laughed through tears. "You were right. I almost gave up, but you didn't let me." He shook his head gently. "You did the work, Lily. You made it happen. I just reminded you what you already had." It was a simple exchange, but it meant everything to her. For days, she prepared her paintings for the show, choosing frames, touching up colors, carefully packing each piece. David helped without hesitation, treating her work as if it were his own. He built wooden stands for the canvases, painted the frames, and made sure everything looked perfect. The night before the exhibition, Lily couldn't sleep. She went downstairs to get water and found David in the living room, checking her paintings one last time. The soft lamplight reflected off his face, calm and focused as always. "You should be resting," she said with a tired smile. He chuckled. "I could say the same to you." She walked closer, her heart full of gratitude. "You know," she said softly, "I wouldn't be here without you." He looked at her, surprised. "Lily, no, really?" she interrupted. "When I met you, I was lost. You listened when no one else did. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You showed me what kindness looks like. You changed my life, David." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was gentle, full of unspoken emotion. Then David said quietly, "You changed your own life. I just held the light while you found your way." Lily blinked back tears. She wanted to say more, but words felt too small for what she felt. So she just smiled and whispered, "Thank you." The next evening, the art show was beautiful. The gallery buzzed with people admiring the paintings. Her mother proudly introduced her as "my daughter, the artist." David stood quietly near the back, watching with quiet satisfaction. Lily caught his eye from across the room, and they exchanged a small, knowing smile. No words were needed. They both knew how far she had come. After the show, Lily received her first job offer from a local design studio. It wasn't a dream job, but it was the beginning you stepped toward independence. When she told David and her mom, they celebrated with dinner and laughter. For the first time, Lily saw her future not as something to fear, but as something to look forward to. A few months later, she moved to Portland to start her new chapter. The morning she left, the air was cool, the sun just beginning to rise. Her mom hugged her tightly, trying not to cry. David stood by the car, helping load her bags. When everything was packed, Lily turned to him. He smiled. "You ready for this?" She nodded. "I think I am. But it feels strange leaving this place." "That's how it's supposed to feel," he said kindly. "It means this place mattered to you." She hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. "David," she said quietly, "before I go, I need to tell you something." He tilted his head, waiting. "You did it to me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You made me see myself again. You made me love life, after I thought I couldn't. You made me believe in people again. I don't know how to thank you for that." His expression softened, his eyes warm with emotion. "Lily, you don't need to thank me. Just keep living. That's all the thanks I need." She hugged him tightly, holding on for a moment that felt endless. There was no awkwardness, no confusion, just deep gratitude. He had become more than a stepfather to her. He had become a symbol of hope, of what genuine care could do for a broken heart. As she drove away, she looked back at the house that had changed her life. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was a chapter of healing, of learning how to trust again. She thought about everything David had taught her without ever trying to teach. That kindness doesn't need to be loud. That love can exist in quiet forms. And that some people enter your life not to stay forever, but to help you grow strong enough to stand on your own. In Portland, Lily built her new life with determination. The small studio apartment she rented soon filled with canvases and sunlight. She worked hard, made new friends, and slowly became known for her art. But no matter how much changed, she never forgot where it began or who helped her find her way. Sometimes she'd send David photos of her new paintings. He'd always reply with a short message, "Proud of you. Keep going." Those 4 words meant the world to her. They reminded her that she wasn't alone, even miles away. 1 year later, Lily returned home for the holidays. When she walked into the house, everything felt smaller but warmer. David was in the kitchen, humming softly as he cooked. When he saw her, his face lit up. "Look at you," he said with a grin. "An artist and a city girl now." She laughed, hugging him tightly. "You knew I'd make it." "Always did," he replied. That evening, they all sat together by the fireplace, the same one where she once hid from her feelings. Now she was different, stronger, peaceful, happy. As she looked around, she realized something beautiful. What David had done for her wasn't about fixing her. It was about helping her rediscover herself. Later that night, as she sat by the window watching snow fall softly outside, she whispered to herself, "He did it to me, and I loved it." Not in the way stories often mean it, but in the truest sense. He had touched her life with kindness, changed her future with compassion, and taught her that love doesn't always come as romance. Sometimes it comes as healing, and that, she realized, was the kind of love that lasts forever.